And now we should be streaming on YouTube. And I'm going live on Facebook. See if I can make that picture a wee bit prettier on Facebook and on YouTube. Just bear with me, people. Just setting up the stream. Actually, should be pretty tech hassle free today, I think, which is nice. And yeah, so cool. Hey, all right, good. I think that's all right. That's looking good on Fascistbot. Aye. Here we go on YouTube. I'm just sorting out the video a bit because the best place to watch this show is on DLive. For the simple reason that they support free speech. Blimey, I'm looking shiny today. They support free speech, people. And that's what we need, huh? Free speech. Article 13's coming in. Yeah, it's coming in. EU directive. It's going to mean that you can't even put out memes without potentially criminalizing yourself or having to gain a copyright waiver from whoever the content originated. And if you can't prove it, I'll tell you what, they have absolutely got it in for us activists. Yeah, they have absolutely got it in for us. So anyway, look, not to worry. There are ways around it. One of the ways around it, we have to be... Oh, hold on a sec. What have I just done with... There we go. What we have to do, folks, is we have to be using platforms that support free speech. So please, if you can, don't use Facebook. Don't use YouTube any more than you have to. Use it. Yeah, I use it. I'm using it now. But look, I'm using it. I don't respect it any more than they respect my data or your privacy. I'm using it as a means to an end, basically. But the bottom line is that I'm using it as much as anything right now to try and encourage folks to come over to DLive, which is a network that they cannot censor for the simple reason that it's built on blockchain technology. And once the show is on the server, or once your activism, your efforts, your sharing is on the server on Steemit, which is their kind of sister company, a social network like Facebook, but a proper social network, not a data mining NSA-backed network. Because it's on blockchain technology, they cannot rip it down. Yeah, they can't rip it down when it's there. Make sure you put something up that isn't going to libel you. Yeah, damn right. But yes, DLive, people. DLive is the way to go. So please, guv.li /chaos. guv.li /chaos. And I know that there are issues with it. It takes a little while to register and stuff like that. It is worth it. It's well worth it. And we have to be making that transition, because when Article 13 is implemented by this Orwellian political construct that they call the EU, we're not going to be able to use Facebook in the same way. People don't realize it yet. People haven't seen it. I've been putting out posts about this for a couple of weeks. I know a lot of people have. Some people are concerned that it's going to come in Article 13 much quicker than that, within a couple of weeks. I don't think that's the case. As I understand it, they are going to be looking to implement this off the back of the summer recess, September, October, something like that. Nonetheless, we got to be prepared. Yeah, we got to be prepared. We got to be getting our networks off Facebook. Using Facebook, yes, because if we can reach out beyond the choir to create awareness, and of course we need to do that every which way we can. But in terms of us being able to share material, to learn and share from each other, Facebook's going to be useless, absolutely useless, and already it largely is. We're singing to the choir, but yeah, you know, it is good to be able to share stuff between us. Of course it is. But anyway, all right, folks. Hey, look, there's a bit of a turnout already. God bless you. Wow. You know, tonight is going to be an incredible show, I think. It's a show that I've been trying to set up for about 2 months since that Cassie Crowhurst video. God bless her. Jon Wedger, ex-cop, and Ex-CID, and he's got one hell of a story to tell that affects us all to the very, very core of our society. I'm afraid it's going to be quite disturbing as well for some of us who are not aware of all the details of this sort of stuff. But it's very important. It's very important for a whole bunch of different reasons, yeah. And I will be explaining that in the introduction. In the meantime, let's have a bit of music, yeah? And please share. Please, please, please. On whatever platform. Or share it on MeWe or guv.li, whatever. Please, please share this show. This is the most important show that this guy here has ever produced. Ever. Yeah? 10 years in the media in the UK. A lot of crap that was, actually, looking back. But all of the daily Brexits, all of the daily chaoses, all the jingly janglies that I did, this, in my opinion, is by far the most important show that I've ever done. And that's why last night it was a bit frustrating when all the tech cocked up and I couldn't hear my guest. But he's here tonight. In fact, let me quickly check. Let me make sure. He was making a cup of tea. John, are you there? Can you hear me? I can hear myself echoing on his, so I think he can. He's probably in the kitchen or something. I can see that he's lighting up. All right, that's fine. He's there. I'm going to put him back in the green room. I'm going to just leave you with a bit of music for 5 minutes or so while I go off and take a pee. All right? Ciao. Oh, blimey, that's the wrong thing. Hold on. That's not it. There we go. Yeah. Bit of chaos. Woo. Yeah. Funky, man. Funky Dory. Three minutes, people.
later.
Okay.
Blimey, I'll tell you that's a bit hectic. John, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I certainly can.
Good man. All right, we'll kick this thing off in about 30 seconds, sir.
Okay, then, mate. No worries.
God bless you.
This is the moment for those who...
Oh, that'll do. That'll do with that lot. Blimey. Let's just get on with it. Good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Chaos. The show ain't daily, but the chaos is. And now, PAEDO Britain. So how extensive is the culture of child abuse, satanic torture, and even child killing in the UK? How far ingrained is it in the echelons of society? To what extent has the police state been covering up this depravity? And quite what must it take to force the fake stream media to try some journalism and properly report this endemic horror that affects the kids, them as adults, our society, and as we shall see, even the very fabric of our political system? Ex-CID whistleblower Jon Wedger blows the lid on the filth that runs our country straight into the ground. Calls on Discord from 7:30, people. guv.li/rant. Discord, yeah? And we'll see you in the comments. Please be watching on DLive, yeah? Support free speech, not fascism. And that is what it is. Corporate political collusion is Benito's definition. Guv.li, chaos is the place to watch this show. And please support the show, yeah? If you can afford a beer or two, chuck it my way. I'll tell you, that would really help me to get to London for the 23rd. Yeah, I'd really appreciate it. I want to be there. I cannot afford to be there at the moment. PayPal.me/Brexit. I want to be reporting from there on the ground. Please share the show. Share the show. Share this show. Please. Thank you. God bless you. Jon Wedger. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in. It is an honor, a real honor to have you pop in and have a chat about something that we really, really do need to have a debate about as a society, it seems to me. Aye. You can hear me there, yes, sir?
I certainly can, Ollie. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Not at all. I'm just going to put your fader up a wee bit so that we can hear you a bit more clearly. You shouldn't have to do anything your end. There's a bit of echo I can hear coming from... I don't know if you can hear echo of yourself when you speak. I can hear a bit of echo when I speak coming from you, but it's not the end of the world.
It seems okay.
All right.
Oh, no, there is a bit of an echo now.
Okay, all right. Look, maybe if you ask your boy there if he can help you with that. Nathan, and I'll just go through one or two news stories. What's going on in the world of fake stream and well, Breitbart are reporting on. I don't know if you saw today. They were doing their nonsense in the. Oh, look at that! My graphics pretty awful today for some reason. Anyway, I don't know if you watched the debate going on in the Commons off the back of PMQs. Such a farce, an absolute farce. Hearing that Keir Starmer debating something we were debating about 2 years ago. He said one of the things he said was, I always listen. I will listen. Why weren't you listening to the 17.4? Huh? Anyway, yeah. I mean, it's a circus. They are not in charge in Westminster. It's the Bilderbergers that are in charge. At the G7 last week, that was all being reported, how Trump was poo-pooing the only leader there, in my opinion. How, they were having all their shenanigans or whatever. But that is not where the true power is held. With the possible exception of Donald Trump, as he proved with that North Korea Accord in Singapore, which the mainstream media were choking their vomit back was reporting. I thought that was hilarious. Westminster is not the seat of power anymore. And it hasn't been for decades. That's the God's honest truth. And we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail in this show as well. The seat of power is with people that are not even necessarily from the UK. And these are true fascists. People like the Soroses of this world. The Richard Bransons, frankly, that are taking our NHS and privatizing the hell out of it from their, wherever it is, some gated island or whatever that he lives on. Anyway, meantime, fifth column, EU Brexit boss demands Farage, Orban, Salvini populists are shut out. You see, this is actually what's going to give us Brexit. It's not going to be Brexit at all. It's not going to be our referendum. It's going to be populism throughout Europe. And everyone's, all this lot, what's his name, that git with the glasses. These Verhofstadt, these people, they want to shut down the populist parties and what have you. I say bring it on. Pop is Latin for people, yeah? People parties, yeah? The mainstream, if they're not listening to us, the lib lab con. And the hint is in the last syllable there, yeah? If they're not doing our bidding, if they're not representing our choice that they gave us, they decided to give us that referendum. They had a vote on it to give us the decision. But then we made the wrong decision, didn't we? But these people, if they're not going to do our bidding, guess what? We're going to vote for populist parties as such. And actually, you know what? Populist is not an insulting word at all. Nigel Farage has blasted the European Parliament's chief Brexit coordinator for a baseless lie and demanded that he retract claims the former UKIP leader used Kremlin money to deliver Brexit. Russians! The hardline federalist Guy Verhofstadt used a speech to call Mr. Farage and other right-wing and populist leaders a fifth column. Are they right-wing? Do you think you're right-wing? I don't consider myself right-wing at all. I consider myself to be a liberal with a small L. A true liberal. Someone who believes in liberal values, that believes that you should treat other people the way you expect to be treated. And that's it. That's it. Anyway, so just more, they are desperate in the EU and Express is giving oxygen to this woman, Subri, who got a 350 majority, a trace majority, yet her constituency voted overwhelmingly for Brexit. John, I know this isn't the reason you're on the show, sir, but do you agree with me that we are seeing democracy debased by what amounts to fascism?
Well, I mean, my political opinion's rather broad, and but what I've definitely seen is that there is an effort to curtail free speech.
Yes.
And
well, that's another thing again.
Use the police as their sort of like bully boys to do that. And I mean, I even see that in my time as a detective, and I've been on numerous units where anyone that was really sort of doing anything that that was causing displeasure to the government, then there would be a bit of an effort to try and sort of either shut them down or shut them up.
I had Michael O on the show last week. He's ex-Met, ex-MOD, and I asked him a straight question. Would you agree with me? Would you go so far as to say that Britain now is a police state? And he said, yes, I would. What would you say to that, being ex-CID, sir?
It's a difficult one. I see. My main focus has been on exposing the child abuse, the cover up of the child abuse, and the sheer extent of child prostitution. Now, they definitely, when I say the Metropolitan Police and probably the broader police family to that degree, did not want me speaking out about it.
No.
And they used bullying and threatening tactics in order to silence me.
Yes. Okay. Let's get into it. So for those that are hearing your voice for the first time, around the UK, hopefully, and indeed around the world, hopefully, because quite frankly, I'll tell you, in the UK, we need all the help we can get right now, and throughout Europe. We need to be pulling together all of our societies for the common good, but not in terms of EU, yeah, middlemen. Would you please explain how it was that you got involved? You were involved were you in the Vice Squad? Is that correct?
Yeah,
originally.
I've been on various specialist units. The Vice Squad was when I was investigating child prostitution, but I also was on child abuse investigations. So, a lot of my focus mainly was on criminality involving children.
Mm-hmm. And when you tried to report what you found, you were basically blanked by your superiors, yeah, in the police.
Yeah. I mean, I looked into an allegation made by a young teenage girl that she was being used as a prostitute, and when I went to see her, she'd actually had made a couple of allegations in the past to the police, and it just hadn't gone anywhere. It'd been recorded, but just hadn't been investigated. And I took her seriously. We sort of got on with each other, and she turned around and said, "Look, it's not just me. There's others." And she introduced me to another girl, and this girl was a bit younger than her, and we're talking young teens. We're talking about 13, 14.
Right.
That girl said, "Yeah, it's happening to me, but there's more," and she put me.
John, you've gone. John. Oh, hold on. Something is coming up on my screen. Oh, for crying out loud. What's this? Discord is... Why has Discord just moved on my computer? Look, if you are watching from GCHQ, just bugger off, yeah? John, I'm sorry. You got cut off there. You were telling... my machine just did something very strange, which is never done before. It really, really makes you wonder who is playing around with us, because it's not done that before. But yeah, you were saying, John, before you got cut off there, there was this young girl, and you were investigating her case, and she said that there were many other similar cases, and then you broke off.
Yeah, no, she just told me of other girls who in turn did likewise, and before we knew it, we had a big child prostitution scene in front of us. But what was more alarming was that this had been going on for a long time.
And these are children, and so this was an extensive network of essentially child prostitution post-pubescent. Is that correct?
Yeah, the kids ranged from 9 to 14. They were all using Class A drugs, street drugs, so crack cocaine and heroin.
Mm-hmm.
They were all being pimped out by the same person. They all had the same story to tell. It'd been going on for a long time, and all of them were subject to either care orders or were in care, and that's local authority care. So these were vulnerable children.
And what we that in itself is awful enough, but it's actually the response from your superiors when you reported this that really, I think, alerted you to how deep this rabbit warren goes. No?
Well, what happened with it, Ollie, is we were working on a multi-agency basis. So we were working with outreach groups and social services. A social worker came to me and she said, we've got to sort this out. She said, these kids are dying. And she told me of one girl that she'd been dealing with who was working as a prostitute and was so badly infected inside herself that she was actually like leaking all sorts of nastiness, you know. And she said, if we don't help us, this girl is going to die. And even in the state she's in, she's still being pimped out. She said, we have asked your unit to attend meetings for the last 10 years and they've never turned up. And all I did was, I was aware it could be contentious because it had been ignored, and that was clear. So I just drafted a small, concise and factual intelligence report, which I thought would be received really well. It would show the fruits of our hard work. It wasn't just me. There was a couple of other people on the unit. And also we may well get the funding that we truly deserve because we just didn't have any resources. And what had happened was that a very senior officer, who I must say up until this point, I had a lot of respect for, and he was very well liked. He just turned on me, and what was happening on a personal level was that I was a single parent of 4 kids, and they were quite young at the time, and I was told that if I ever mentioned a word of what I found out, that I would lose my job, my children, and my home. I would be thrown to the wolves. I had no idea who or what I was dealing with, and I must shut my effing mouth. And it just, I mean, I nearly fell off my chair. It absolutely knocked me for 6. And it was an unambiguous threat for me to shut my mouth. And I was removed from the investigation, and the investigation was greatly scaled down. And they never investigated another case of child prostitution until the Jimmy Savile thing sort of was exposed. So there was a good 7 odd years when the unit that was meant to be looking out for these kids didn't.
So hold on.
And it had been going on for a long time.
So you're a cop. You're doing your job. You're trying to protect the people, the public. Why? Where's the problem?
Well, exactly. I mean, what people have got to look at. I mean, the first question you've got to ask is why. Why on God's earth would anyone react in such a vicious manner to this? I'd obviously picked a scab that they didn't want me near. And then we are seeing the like sort of criminality exposed all over the UK. We've seen Rotherham, Rochdale, Aylesbury, Oxford, Luton. I could go on and on and on. But we have not heard of anything from London. London is the biggest urban conurbation in Western Europe. 70 to 80% of all organised criminality, and these are National Crime Agency stats, occur in and around London. We are dealing with the ultimate organised criminality, and that is the trafficking of children. We have not heard of one case, you know, and then what happened was that I did come forward and continue to speak out, and I made criminal allegations against the Metropolitan Police for how I was treated. And this is when the real campaign of bullying came against me. Now, it's not just me that had suffered in this way. I thought I was alone, but I was put in touch with other whistleblowing cops from different forces around the country who had exposed identical criminality, and they were bullied in the identical fashion I was. And these officers were a bit different to me because they had exposed it once they'd left the force. I exposed it. As far as I know, I'm the exposed it whilst I was still in post, and I had a hell of a lot to lose. And I was told by one of them, look, if you carry on, they will come for you, and they will serve you with gross misconduct papers. They will investigate you, and they will sack you. They will do their best to imprison you. And another one turned around to me and said, you will find the tentacles of this will go right to the heart of the establishment. And them words were predictive, because over the next 3 years, there was a vile campaign for me, like what was said to me years earlier. I nearly lost my house because they stopped paying me for nearly 3 years, right?
What, your pension?
Every, just I didn't get a penny, right? I went to half pay, and then I went to no pay.
Whilst you were still working?
Yeah, I was still in employment, yeah.
And they'd stop your pay?
I'd actually, I'd actually gone sick and walked out, but the causal link was them, and that was proved that causal link was them. And it was even agreed by Cressida Dick, right, that
Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, no?
Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police.
Top cop.
She said to me, if you can give me evidence of a causal link that you going sick is down to us, we'll carry on paying you. She was given all that information by numerous independent professionals, and she still went ahead and put me on half pay, and then it went to no pay. They then served me on 3 occasions with gross misconduct papers, each of them consisting of 3 offences. So I was looking at 9 offences against me. I couldn't resign because they'd implemented gross misconduct. So I couldn't resign. I couldn't retire either. And their campaign was to bring me to my knees. But what was worse, Ollie, and this is one thing, this was a turning point. I've got a bit of an echo in here, but I'll continue with it. But
we've got no echo on the output, sir.
Yeah, it's just a bit distracting, but I'll carry on. But a year ago, I was still in post, and one of my children was involved in a horrendous accident. It was catastrophic and it was life-changing. He remained on life support for many months. They had lost him and they got him back again. And then one day, I bear in mind, I've got no money, I've got no income. The bank have come around my house twice, looking at repossessing my home. I still had, at the time, younger children. My youngest was 16, at home, but they were dependent on me. So I had no money. It was people that were giving me charitable donations that kept me going. Right. So I've nearly lost my job. I'm under investigation. I'm fearful that I'm going to go to prison. And bear in mind, all I've done is stand up for this vile criminality, this evil criminality. Right. So I'm not in the right frame of mind. I'm in panic mode. And now I've got a son on life support. There was a beautiful person I worked with who had the moral backbone to go to my superintendent and say, you need to help Jon. I can't see what he's done wrong. He's got no money. His son is dying. Please help him. What has he done wrong? She was then threatened with discipline, right? I was called to the hospital because my son had died and had been dead for 7.5 minutes. I had a 100-mile drive to this hospital because it was a specialist unit. They'd revived my son. They got his heart going, but he was on 100% life support, and they didn't know if there was a brain algorithm. He was 100% lungs were on assisted breathing. I had to then sit there and sign a form agreeing to them to turn off the life support if he does not wake up. They said if he does wake up, he would probably be badly brain damaged, and they couldn't then assess the rest of the damage to his body. For 3 days, I sat with my dying son. I was sleeping in my car, and I had no food, no money, no nothing. Right, and the Met Police had been told about this situation. I then went home from that, because my son actually woke up. On the third day, he woke up and he showed a response. I told him I loved him and I went home. When I went home, there was 2 police detectives waiting for me, as the Met Police had made an allegation of child abandonment, that while I was at my dying son's side, I had abandoned and neglected my 16-year-old son.
Your other kid.
This is what these. I mean, I. It's difficult. I don't want to hate anyone, but this is the mentality of those in charge. And I actually do blame the commissioner for this, because the commissioner knew what was going on, and she'd been told by the policing minister as well. So there's no way they can claim ignorance here. This is how they deal with one of their own. I like to think that how I acted in conditions of my oath. I acted, as my oath says, without fear or without favour.
Mm-hmm.
I protected society's most vulnerable, who had been ignored and neglected, but not on my own. There was others with me. I'm not taking the glory for this, but I did take the beating for this, you know. Mm-hmm. And this is how the public would expect me as a public servant to behave. This was how I would expect morally, spiritually, and professionally to behave. And I think probably 99% of the decent population will be behind me. But they deem it necessary to treat me and my family in this way. But it isn't just me that suffered like this. We've had Maggie Oliver, who was
hold up, John. Hold that just a sec, because I'm going to be asking you about Maggie Oliver. Bear with me a sec. I want to involve some of our commenters, because God bless them. Really appreciate that they're getting involved. And Top Painter says, top man, total respect to you. And a lot of people are saying that kind of stuff, John, by the way. A lot of support for you here. Dave Hunter's just shocking. I don't see Joe. Must have been a twonk in the part. Lopi, that's Lopi Lou. God bless her. She gave us a very heartfelt show last night, actually, in your absence, John, when your tech didn't work. And my God, I'll tell you that was quite something. Anyway, Joe Blogs, I was referring to the police commissioner, Levi Divani. You were referring to Cressida Dick, weren't you?
But what you've got crime commissioners are different to police commissioners. There's only 2 forces in the UK that have a commissioner, and that is the City of London and the Metropolitan Police. The rest of them have chief constables. But each policing area will have a crime commissioner, which will be locally appointed. So I don't have any sort of dealings with them.
Okay, all right. Kenneth Noel Gabriel Curran says, if you wouldn't want any cabinet minister babysit your children, why would you subject your children to education? And it's a very good question now.
I mean, on that front, the cabinet minister for policing and crime, he really went out of his way to help me. And it was rumoured he was removed from his post as policing minister, and as Sir Mike Penning, because he was helping me.
Really?
And he's actually openly shown his disgust. Now, you can only work with the tools you've got. You have to sometimes work with MPs. And let me tell you now, yes, I've heard there are a lot of vile MPs, and I've got intelligence given to me about their shenanigans. But there are some good ones in there as well. There are good social workers and there are good police. So for
white
me,
hats.
I avoid the sweeping statements. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, sure. Absolutely. And my God, I tell you, we need the white hats. We need the white hats. We need the white hats to come out and tell us what's going on. And John is a white hat. No. The Crown's involved with Savile, Lopi points out. We'll be coming on to that. Chris Warren, this is so heartbreaking. And he also says, I think we need to be protesting about this. Let them know that we know. We'll come on to media collusion in a minute as well. And that doubtless at the same time as talking a bit about Savile. I wanted to ask you, somebody else, it seems to me, had a not dissimilar experience to you, John, was the top cop for Wiltshire, Mike Veal, who stood outside his house on telly, on the news. I think it was a live broadcast, and he said he was 120% sure that Ted Heath was a paedophile. And then he subsequently, I can't remember the name of the operation, sir.
Conifer.
And that operation, he went on sick leave, didn't he? Which seemed quite convenient, given that Conifer was highly progressed as an operation, as I understand it. And then the next we read, he'd been pensioned off. Do you think that he had a similar experience? I'm sorry?
He's moved now to Cleveland. He's a chief constable of Cleveland. Mike Veal, I would consider him as a friend. He's an incredible individual because the bullying come to me from his rank, not from him, but from his rank. And his bullying came higher up the food chain, but higher up in the establishment. And we have been put in contact, and we do speak regularly. And he actually asked me, he said, "What am I to expect, John?" I said, "They're going to come for you, Mike. They will do," and they did. And there was more attempts to stitch him up. Now he hasn't made them public. I'm aware of them, and us whistleblowers, we did get together and we did do our best to assist him. But there was members of the House of Lords that were out to absolutely destroy this man, and he is an incredibly brave, courageous, and a man of total integrity, and I've got a lot of respect for him.
Out of interest, did that happen? I think that Mike Veal, that happened, his situation, and I was wondering what happened to you. Did it happen under the tenure of a certain Home Secretary, Theresa May?
Yes.
Who also set up the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's failed 3 times. I think they're now in their 4th chair.
That's right.
And I have actually been asked to sit on it, and that came from victims. And see, I work with the victims and survivors of abuse.
Yeah.
And I work very closely with a really good man called Bill Maloney.
Yes, good on him.
Haute de la Garenne. I need to give Haute de la Garenne. He did Sunsea and Satan, and he's just done another one called The Walking Whistleblowing Detective.
Oh, really? Oh, I'll check that out.
People to check it out.
The Walking
Whistleblowing Detective.
Okay.
And
he is a good man.
His film about my walk from London to Manchester to highlight the plight of whistleblowers and victims of abuse. And so the victims and survivors, they actually went to the legal team for the government and said, get Jon Wedger on they call it the ICSA.
Yes.
It's the independent, child sexual abuse panel. And they have approached me and asked if I would sit on it, and I have to. So it's just waiting for government ratification. And they've also extended it to 2 other members of my little whistleblowing group.
You mentioned that Mike Veal was receiving a lot of hassle from, I don't know whether you said Lord plural or singular. I don't suppose that would have been Leon Britton, would it?
Well, he's dead now. But
I know he's dead now.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I don't think.
Fair enough.
It was anything to do with his family. I couldn't tell you the name of the Lords. I was told, but I've forgotten.
Okay.
But it did come from the House of Lords. That's where there was pressure for him to resign, and he wouldn't. And again, if you look, they accused him of wasting money. Policing is very expensive. He got in retired police detectives that came in at a very low hourly rate. They were very diligent and they worked very hard for Mike and very professional. So they weren't going to get abstracted into any form of policing. They were there for that. So he was saving money there. His bill come in at under £1 million, which is phenomenally cheap. And they moaned about that. Yet they never moaned about the 11.5 million that they thrown at the McCann investigation. That's all right. But when it comes to Mike, even spending a penny more than he should, they're on him. And this just shows what these vile people do. And what I need to say is that at the end of the day, the public are the arbiter to this. The public pay for these people to be in position. If they've had enough of these people that are making these vile decisions, then they should do something about it. If we look at what happened in Belgium under the Marc Dutroux, it's a Dutroux, Dutrous.
Yes.
This man was abducting children. They were being tortured and raped, and some of them were dying for high convoluted, high positions of power. People use them for sex parties. All sorts are involved. Now they tried to cover up the Belgium establishment, and what happened was that the people were so fed up of it. The firemen went out and they opened their hoses, blew the parliamentary windows out with their hoses, and then the farmers sprayed manure over the building, and then just short of 500,000 people took to the streets of Brussels to protest for disclosure of what had gone on, because they tried to cover it up. Now, what we've seen in the UK is exactly the same: cover up after cover up after cover up, and it is always child prostitution. Now, these are kids that have come from the care system. They're incredibly vulnerable. They're incredibly damaged kids, and we are allowed these top coppers to behave in this manner. It's appalling. And if we look at then the damage that it does, these children, if they don't get the help, they go on to become damaged adolescents, damaged young adults, and society will forever be picking up the bill. And our
Yes.
prisons,
And
75 to 80% of the prison population come from childhood traumatic backgrounds. I mean, what the hell are we doing to our kids?
Yeah. And it's just, society suffers as a whole because our opportunity as a nation is considerably, everybody who has been abused and has to carry that weight with them, that have that kind of damage going on, it affects everything for them. Go on.
If you look at the bill, the financial bill, people are paid a good working wage to intervene and so-called break the cycle, but none of them do. All they do is progress it and accelerate it. And from cradle to grave, these poor little kids are just treated as a cash cow.
Yeah.
You know that you've got the family courts. They get them ready for the juvenile courts, which get them ready for the magistrates, the Crown courts, and ultimately for the coroner's courts. No one breaks the cycle and gives them the help they need. And it
Jon,
really is appalling.
Would you go so far as to say, from that point of view, that this, what seems to me, is institutional child abuse in the public sector, quite aside from what we see with grooming gangs and what have you? Would you go so far as to say as it is an industry?
Oh, 100%. This is organised criminality. And when on 2 points, because someone said to me once, I was a radio interview I did, and they were going on about Freemasonry and secret societies. I'm telling you now, the only secret society you need to be bothered about here is paedophilia. That is the ultimate secret society. This secret of paedophilia, it keeps their mouth shut. And this is organised crime. If you take Rotherham, and what is happening now is they're making it a religious issue. There is a religious connotation to certain parts of the country. I never had that in London. I dealt with one case where Bengali kids were pimping out non-Muslim girls, but there was only a couple of kids on that, and that was a very small problem, right? If you go back to London many years ago, the Maltese were very, they were implementing a lot of the grooming and the prostitution in the 50s. The Italian migrants were involved in it, Jamaican migrants. Then you've got these European, the Kosovan gangs. So, we've had that all in London. We haven't heard about any of that. Up in Rotherham, they're making out that these are strictly Kashmiri Pakistanis are taking these kids to these parties, and these are minicab drivers that are all having sex with these kids. These kids were disclosing they were going to posh houses, that some of their clients were white people, wealthy white people, which ties in with what I dealt with. This is organised crime. I would say don't get distracted by making it a religious or a political issue. This is organised criminality. There has been strong links with organised gangsters and coppers in the cover-up of this. We've just seen in Manchester one of the Noonan family go away for paedophilia with young boys, and we've heard about it. I've definitely heard about it from other whistleblowers throughout the country with high up organised criminals being involved in this, and not all of them, because I work very closely now with a man called Chris Lambriano, who was a member of the Cray Twins gang back in the day.
Right.
And we work closely together helping out the lay community, which is an alcohol and drug rehab centre. And most of them have come from these bad backgrounds. But it's kids
the craze.
money.
The craze. A lot of people say that they were involved in organised paedophilia.
Yeah.
They also had some very interesting links with some very peculiar characters, such as Lord Boothby. Some people might want to do some research on that. I wanted to ask you how much this is about paedophilia, and as, for example, Bill Maloney was talking about in Sun, Sea and Satan about Jersey, about Out de Legarin, the care home there that Jimmy Savile visited. He denied it, and then they found him in a picture there in the garden, the place where they found bones of kids in the cellars that they dug up.
Yeah, I mean,
he was explaining, in that it wasn't so much about paedophilia; it was actually about Satanism.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Mike Veal actually did mention about what they class as satanic ritual abuse. And this is one thing that seems to be cropping up with more and more frequency, is the satanic element to it. There's a really good book called Dancing with the Devil by a lady called Audrey Harper. And Audrey Harper was a street prostitute and drug addict for many years and got drawn into the world of Satanism. And part of her briefing as an active Satanist was to go and procure children from care homes for sex parties, because one of the things they like to do is to have sex with children, because it's an attack on a child, because a child is pure and is clean and is natural and is progressive. That's one thing they don't like, you know. And that tied in with very much what the kids were saying to me. We will be taken to big posh parties, you know. There was a lot of money was passed hands and people would have sex with us. So the kids themselves wouldn't ordinarily know that they were being involved in Satanism, but the backdrop is they will be taken to feed members of this coven because they have a lust for sex with children. And I've had a couple of ex-Satanists come to me and actually explain what goes on and the people that go. They've even mentioned to me police officers that have been involved. You know, so it's a difficult one, because I am at present in a civil case with the Metropolitan Police, so I've got to be careful what I say and what I don't say, because I have been warned about contemptuous behaviour and the contempt laws, and I really do need to respect them. But
yeah, sure, yeah,
it really is the elephant in the room. And going back to you were saying about Bill Maloney did the Sun, Sea and Satan, there was an appointment made for us to see quite a well-known MP in Parliament, and we're on way to Parliament, Bill and myself, and we get a phone call from the MP when I do, and I'm told, John, do not come into Parliament. We're just on the steps about to go through security. Meet us in this pub. Told us a pub. We went to this pub, and he turned up, and he said, John, we had to take it seriously. We got a threatening call. Quite a well-spoken man. We believe it may have come from the security services. And what was said was, whatever you do not have Jon Wedger in your office for strict compliance. And that's what was said to him. And then the PA for the politician took me outside and said to me, for your own safety, you must disassociate yourself from Bill Maloney. He has some powerful enemies in and outside of Parliament.
Yeah, he does. I'll tell you, if he wants to sue me, Nick Clegg, I think he rubbed him up the wrong way for a start. Hey, Nick, how you doing, mate? God bless you, you bloody remoron. I want to play you something, John. I want to play you this clip, and for everybody to hear this. I play this most shows, people, and you might be getting sick to the back teeth of it, but the God's honest truth is, it seems to me that this is one of the reasons that we were railroaded into the EEC. This is Tim Fortescue talking on Westminster's service on the BBC in 1995. Now, he was a whip under the Heath government that took us into the EEC, and he shared an office with Ken Clarke, who is now the Elder of the House of Commons, and who yesterday voted against that, against the government, against Brexit, basically. Now, and he's also, Ken Clarke, on the steering committee of the Bilderberg bloody group, the people that really run the planet, or try to. They're being given a run for their money by a certain Donald Trump at the moment. But anyway, have a listen to this. This apparently is how they oiled the rails of democracy in the UK. And my question off the back of this to Jon will be, how much is this still the case? But this is the clip.
Anyone with any sense.
Hold on.
Anyone say, no, I'm in a jam. Can you help?
Hold on. Let me play this again. Let me start this again. I want you to hear this in full.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips and tell them the truth and say, no, I'm in a jam. Can you help? It might be debt. It might be scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal which a member seemed likely to be mixed up in.
An MP.
They'd come and ask if we could help. And if we could, we did. And we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points. That sounds a pretty nasty reason, but it's one of the reasons. Is if we can get a chap out of trouble, then he'll do as we ask forevermore.
Incredible, isn't it? Absolutely flabbergasting quote, basically admitting one of Ted Heath's whips, a whip of any government for God's sake, just happens to be the UK government, the so-called seat of democracy or whatever it is that they pretend, admitting that they used child rape to blackmail these depraved MPs to have them vote with the government or to spread the government's propaganda. So I think Ken Clarke's got some questions to answer, because he desk shared basically with Tim Fortescue for a year, surrounding exactly that time when Tim Fortescue was talking about that little black book. Jon, what? It's just incredible, no? It beggars belief.
Yeah, I didn't hear it at my end, but I have heard that clip before. I mean, if we go back to Haute de la Garenne, one of the whistleblowers in our little group is Lenny Harper, who was the senior investigating officer for that. And when they went into that kid's home, they were told about parties with the children, sex parties. Underneath there was like a torture chamber. There was a bath the kids were put in. There was handcuffed to radiators, to walls, all sorts. And some kids never returned back from going under there. When Lenny went, he knew what he was up against. He could see straight away that there was this hidden agenda in Jersey. And what I've got to say about Jersey is Jersey still has a feudal system, and the landowners still have the right to police the people. And they've got what's called the honorary police department. And these are the wealthy landowners' children get the rights without any training whatsoever to become police constables, and are given warrant cards and radios and are allowed to turn up for calls with no training whatsoever. And he said, and one of these people had actually been convicted of rape and was a police constable. So Lenny, when they went and searched this basement area, they found it as it was described. He took along an archaeologist, so it was dug properly and it was properly recorded what was going on. And they had an anthropologist, so any finds could be properly analysed and identified. And they found bone. And the cadaver dog picked up the best cadaver dog you could get, which is a body sniffing dog, picked up the scent of human, and they found human bone. They knew it was human bone because it had the right amount of collagen on it. And it was identified as an infant's infant skull, and aged between 5 to 7 years. And they found numerous pieces of this, as well as milk teeth. When it got sent off to the laboratory for verification, what come back on the lab report was, he said the exhibit bag was different. The unique seal reference number was the same, but the actual seal was a different seal. And the report was that it was coconut shell. And it just absolutely defies belief. And Lenny Harper himself was threatened. He was threatened with arrest. I mean, it just totally defies belief that we accept this official narrative, and it is a blatant cover-up. And these are children. These are frightened, scared little children, which should have been protected. And then you've got whoever high up is instructing the police to cover this up, and they are doing it with absolute effect, and they are doing it unabated, and they're doing it with impunity, and we're allowing it. Yet the British public, I will just say to you, you need to wake up. And I don't want to insult anyone, and I really don't, but if we don't wake up, our children get hurt. A woman threw a cat in a bin a couple of years ago, and it was a national outrage. It was on TV.
I remember the story.
To be made.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, where's your priority?
Yeah.
Someone else sent me a thing.
John, we have, it has to be said, as an aside, we have an RSPCA, a Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, but only an NSPCC, a National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, which is a bit telling in my... Anyway, carry on, please, John, just as an aside.
Well, there's that famous quote that from a well-read Brit who turned around and said, you can judge a nation about how it treats its animals and its prisoners. No mention of children. You know, David Beckham kicked a football over a set of garages. It went on to Facebook or YouTube or whatever, and instantly got 1 million hits.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now.
Yeah, that's right.
But the problem with this, as soon as you mention it, people say, "Can we not talk about it, please? It's a bit depressing." You know,
which it is. But
Edmund Burke, in order for the triumph of evil, it takes but for good men to do nothing. We can't do nothing on this.
I'm going to take some calls, folks, and I've got David Wolf here. But first of all, I'll read out a few more comments. John, look, normally this show is an hour, but if you, sir, were available a bit longer, to be honest with you, I've got so many questions for you, and I'm sure other people have as well. And I want to, try and involve as many folks as possible. Thomas White says, all part of the ring. People don't understand just what is covered up. Thomas White, ex-military. Bless you, mate. Steve Freedom, our PM, lost evidence on paedophiles. We do know that the Dickens dossier was lost, the copy that he sent to Leon Britton when Leon Britton was the Home Secretary of the Home Office, that indirectly was sponsoring the paedophile information exchange, a pressure group that was trying to have the age of sexual consent lowered to the age of 3.
And Harriet Harman
Harriet Harman, sir. John?
Yeah, she was involved in...
she had links with her husband too. And what do they do with her? She becomes the acting Labour leader. The acting Labour leader. I'm sorry, I get excited. Right. Susan Wallace Maudit says pedos are in high places and they give jobs in high places to their pedo mates. Just a bit more of that, a little bit of that sort of tapestry of VIP pedophilia, if you like. From Leon Britton, who, of course, what's his name? The deputy Labour leader now made that astonishing question in the House and actually mentioned him by name, Watson, who was somehow then Tom Watson, who somehow has been silenced and gone very quiet and apologised to the family and all that, and then becomes the deputy Labour leader, quids in, mate, with a £500,000 bung from Max Mosley. It's all very odd, but he mentioned Leon Britton. Now, Leon Britton, one of his proteges, a political protege, was a certain Nick Clegg, who praised him thoroughly in many, many ways, and Nick Clegg praised Cyril Smith. despite the fact that it was already known what Nick. I'm not saying that Nick Clegg is involved here personally. I do not know. I do know that he praised Cyril Smith as a sort of a great sort of statesman, blah 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 blah, when he died. As did David Steele way before he died, who just joked about his paedophilia, his boy rape, in was that Rotherham or Rochdale, John? When he one of the
he has come to the help of Cyril Smith, and
he did, and Cyril he did said all he was doing was slapping little boys' bottoms. He was raping them. Cyril Smith was, and who is now running that constituency? Labour MP Tony Lloyd. Maybe you can explain his situation. I mean, Tony Lloyd, is it going too far to say that he was complicit with the grooming gangs as dramatized in the documentary Three Girls, for example, John?
Well, I mean,
complicit's maybe too strong a word, but I mean, Jesus, it's a word that I would tend to use.
Maggie has been a real strong support for me from the early days. Maggie was many years ago came to my assistance, and she did help me through a lot of this. She told me what to expect, and she is an incredibly brave woman, and they really hurt her as well at a very traumatic time in her life, and she's justly getting the publicity she now deserves. And but you know, they all knew about it, and just the sheer lies. I think it was the Chief Constable Peter Fahy is one of the things I heard, that when Three Girls went out, that Greater Manchester Police actually wrote to the BBC, and if you talk about cognitive distortion, turned around to the BBC and pleaded with them not to put Three Girls out, saying that they had suffered enough. So all of a sudden, they're now the victim.
Who had suffered enough? These child
Greater
rapists.
Manchester Police.
Greater Manchester Police had suffered enough.
Yeah, they claim to be the victim of all this.
And Tony Lloyd was running that sham, top cop for Manchester, and now he's an MP, parachuted in by Jeremy Corbyn. It just seems to be endemic on all sides of the house, and it seems as though what Tim Fortescue was saying hasn't really changed.
Well, every single MP that turned to have any sort of governance in exposing this, Bill Maloney and myself went before them. We sat before Tom Watson. We've sat before Simon Danchuk. I could list a few more. One of the ones that actually did something positive to help was Jessica Phillips. She's the MP for Yardley, and she was of a lot of assistance. The others, they promised us everything, and we heard nothing from them. You know, and this is what happens all the time. It's just one of the MPs that is helping, one of the police whistleblowers. He's a Tory, and he was told by Theresa May, your political career will not be progressing because he's been outspoken in helping.
That's quite a claim, sir. That's quite a claim.
Yeah, unbelievable. But what I will say is, there are maybe a lot of people out there that don't like the police, right? And I can get that. And the people I work with now, most of them have come from the criminal classes, and we've got a criminal history. But as much as paedophilia is bringing all these vile people together, because paedophilia does not know any social boundaries, it does not know any economic or religious boundaries. It is evil, and it is very organized. But as much as doing it is also bringing us good ones together. And so we've got to forget one person's from this religion, one person's from this class, not that class, one person's a cop, one person's a cop. Doesn't matter. If we are united in fighting paedophilia, we will move forward, and we will.
Okay, I'm going to take some calls. We've got David Wolf, been very patient for the last half hour. We're going to carry on with this show, yeah? So please, if you want to call in on guv.li/rant, and that's on Discord, yeah? So you might have to download it or something, but hey, you should, because you should be a regular caller, God bless you. David, what would you like to say, sir?
Well, I'd just like to ask, did he find anything in his investigations about the harvesting of adrenochrome, the torturing of the young children to harvest their blood for the or the hide.
Well,
Blimey.
nothing was ever that specific, but you know, as a police officer, you will deal with the victims, and you will also deal with the criminals. And I remember speaking to one paedophile and said, "Why do you do it?" And he said, "It makes me high." And he turned around and said that when there was a group and they would abduct a child, and it was done in a sort of a group setting, and he said beforehand everyone would be agitated and they'd be like junkies without heroin pacing up and down, but when there was a child coming they would feel relaxed and all happy. So it was a drug, and he said it just empowers me, makes me feel very high. I mean, really, in many ways they're harvesting the spirituality of the child, and that's one of the things that's not looked at. They're looking at the mental health and they're looking at the physical health, but what about the spiritual well-being of the child as well? Because we are mind, body, and soul.
God bless
and they
you.
ignore that side of it, you know. And you need to get all three elements in place if anyone's going to recover properly. But never ever that specific. But then again, this is a very, very close shop, you know. And if we're talking about Satanism, there's really spectators in Satanism. You're either involved or you're not. And I can give you a story of one of my informants told me that when he was picked up as a rent boy on the streets of London, Piccadilly, what used to be called the meat rack, and he was a heroin addict in his early teens, and a runaway from, and he become a rent boy, and he had a pimp, and he said I was safer with a pimp on the streets than I was in the kids' homes, you know. And he went to get into a car, and he said it was a white Rolls Royce. And he said there was two men in it, very, very posh. And he went to go in, and his pimp said, "Don't get in there." His name was Paul. He said, "Paul, do not get in that car." And he went, "Why?" He went, "The last two boys from the meat rack that got in that car, we never saw them again." Now, they genuinely believed that this white Rolls Royce was taking kids and they were killing them. What happened was this Paul went round the corner and met up with the car and got in. He was then taken, he was raped and subjected to days of torture in which these men actually believed they'd actually killed him and were plotting where to dump his lifeless body because he kept coming in and out of consciousness. They dumped his body up in Hampstead Heath near the Royal Free Hospital, believing he was lifeless, and he spent many, many months where they had to totally rebuild his lower intestines and things like that. And he said they were out to kill me. What they did to me was just pure evil. He said they had a big gated house in the Hampstead area of London. So, I mean, that's about the nearest thing I've got to what I would class as pure evil.
Do you recall that story, the Satanist story that came out of Hampstead? I think it was the kids, one or two kids were talking about it. Was that a cover-up? It did make the media, but it was, the kids were basically, their story was poo-pooed, as I understand it. How in what was going on there? Any idea, I mean, John? Just out of interest.
It's always difficult unless you get all the paperwork, you know,
sure.
and you know fully the family dynamics. But going on what I know and I've been told so far, and the amount of time the police didn't investigate that crime, then I would say yes, there has been a cover up, and I think the investigation into the allegations. What was it? Was a matter of weeks. It was a very small period of time, and having investigated child rapes and attempted murders on children, you know, you manage that crime for a long time, usually well over a year, and that seemed to sort of be disposed of very quickly. So, yeah, I'm suspicious of that case and the fact that it probably was covered up.
We've got Glenn Rocky Teal popped in as well. Hey, Glenn. Long time.
Hey, Ollie.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, very tired.
What would you like to ask? What would you like to ask, John?
Well, I'm doing a talk on your background, as well as Maggie Oliver, Lenny Harper, and all of those.
Okay.
As you're going through a case at the moment,
yep.
How much am I allowed? Obviously, I won't know all the in-depth details that you do.
Yeah. Well, whatever I've put out in public domain Glenn, that's that's basically it. I mean, that are names that I've not disclosed, and I have no need to disclose them names. But whatever I've put out, then please. I mean, there's been a couple of interviews that the UK column put out, which near enough is a full timeline. The one with the International Court of Justice, whatever it was the other day, it's online. That pretty much says a lot of it. My narrative is usually all the same. All it does, it just updates because this is progressing so quickly, and the public support is absolutely phenomenal. So whatever I say, then yeah, please use it. I mean, this is a thing. The truth is the truth, and if you look at Maggie Oliver, Lenny Harper, there's another guy called Pete Jackson. We've got a lady from the West Midlands. She's Ridley, her same name is, and Joe Ridley. And again, we were all bullied in the same way for exposing the same crimes. So Julie Ridley, sorry. And it's unbelievable, and there's got to be a reason for it. It's always when it's child abuse and child prostitution do you get this aggressive attack.
Do you
That's a common. Oh, sorry.
go on, Glenn? Go on. Sorry. Go
I
on.
was going to say it's a common denominator I've found with a lot of cases in regards to child abuse, satanic abuse, is that anyone who speaks up about it, they'll shut them down as quick as possible.
Yeah. They do.
And it seems that they're all involved in it.
I was going to ask about a specific case,
you'll
John.
never
Go on.
involved in who isn't, and but the thing is, how can anyone, any normal human being who knows about this, allow it to continue and not stand up? It's just, it just defies me. It really does. And if you look at police officers, they take an oath: I will act without fear, I will act without favour. And now when it comes to fear, that yes, they might be frightened, and I've been frightened, but my fear is incomparable to the fear of a young child who's being abused. And it's a bit like a soldier complaining that he doesn't want to go to war and get killed. Well, do you know what? That's tough. And it's the same as a police officer. I'm frightened. It's tough. Unfortunately, no, a moral duty to stand up and expose this. And if this, in some way, does unhinge the political stability of this nation, the question has to be asked: why? How can exposing the rape of children, be a political issue and be of an economic or a political detriment to this country? If so, what the hell is going on?
Yes. Do you think that that's what happened to Simon Danzig? You mentioned Simon Danzig, the whistleblowing MP. God bless him. I thought he was fantastic. Awesome. Way cooler than Tom Watson in his perseverance, it seemed to me. He then had lots of marital problems and what have you. And it was, I don't know, I just got the impression reading the press, and I followed his, if you like, life history off the back of his allegations quite closely through the next few years, and his life fell apart. And I just wonder how much that was to do with the establishment silencing him.
Well, this is it. You've got to look at all these MPs that stand up. Where are they now? The child abuse continues. And unfortunately, you need to be clean if you're going to go into this world. And if there is any little faux pas in your history, they are going to bring it out. And you know what, really? So what? If you get exposed for a few misdemeanors, does it really matter? What you're exposing is far greater. But then again, there will be this attack. And what they want is to put you before a court. And then they want you to accept a plea bargain, and they'll say, look, you could be going in prison here, John. Just accept that. You'll be found guilty. You'll get a conditional discharge, and of course you're then a criminal. And they can say, look, Jon Wedger is a man of dishonesty. He was left of force under dubious circumstances. He's not a credible man, and this is what they want to do. And you have to say to him, no, stick it. I wrote a letter to Cressida Dick, and I turned around and I said to her, I gave her a statement of exactly what I'd done. I had done nothing wrong. And all the people, all the officers from sergeant to inspector to chief inspector, all the way up to herself, commissioner. And then it went on to cabinet ministers who knew about this cover up in London, knew about the attack on me, yet did nothing. And I said, I will go to Crown Court, and that is my evidence. My peers will judge me. And I said, based on the response I get from the public now, I'll be loved and you'll be hated. So you crack on and you send me to court. And the CPS turned around and said, Jon Wedger's mitigation is too powerful to continue prosecution. And this is what they do. They will rubbish you and denigrate you. They've tried so much with my bill. They did everything to try and stitch that poor man up. And the victims, your family suffers, your children suffer, and they know it. And, you know, shame on those that do their bidding. Shame on them.
Do you think there's any truth, as an aside, that Ted Heath did visit Outdale Garden and pulled small boys from there to his yacht, the Morning Cloud, or as I understand it, his security contingent dubbed it the Morning Glory? Is there any? Can we know if there's any truth to that, or is it mere speculation?
Well, I'll tell you now. Someone I know, his brother, told him that he was raped by Ted Heath. So, and what I've heard is that they had something like 23 credible corroborative sources on Ted Heath. So
really, 23 credible,
23 credibles, and maybe not on the murder. Whatever,
and these are the ones that are alive,
involving children. Well,
and
yeah, I mean they're getting on. I mean, you've got to look at
this is the guy that took us into the EEC. Is it not conceivable that this guy was bribed, and that's the reason he was being blackmailed, and that's the reason that we're in this mess?
I mean, what we got to look at
is
the position he got to, and then we got to look at some of the Home Secretaries in the past that have been named, and you're going into a position where you're going to be dealing with matters of national and sometimes international security, you know.
Yes.
Now, in the police, if you deal with sensitive top secret information, you are subjected to one of the most vigorous vetting processes that there are. And I've been subjected to it, right? And I passed it, right? And certain things will unhinge you. And they will be how many sexual partners. They tend to always concentrate on the sexual side of it because that's where people can be compromised the most. And a sergeant turned around to me, detective sergeant that was dealing with the vetting, said to me, one of the things that will go against you will be your sexuality. If you're homosexual, then they know that there's a good chance that you're going to have more sexual partners than if you're married and heterosexual. Therefore, you've got more chance of being compromised. Therefore, you've got less chance of being getting through the vetting process. And in the days of political correctness and everything else, this still stands to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. So how comes when there have been MPs that have been in these high positions, and it has been an open secret, even though they're married, that they are homosexual, that they are involved in various nefarious sexual activities, that they are allowed to remain in post? It absolutely defies belief.
I've got a couple more folks that have called in. I'm going to take their calls in just a second. Let me just take a few more comments. Susan Wallace-Moritz says, Peter, this man risked losing his own kids. They came for him, talking about John here. They came for him hard. What is he gaining from this? I don't know what Peter was saying to provoke that comment. John Taylor, John should be running the police in this country. Kenneth Noel Gabriel Curran. Peter, this Google search. Oh, that I can't. It's way too long to read. Thomas White, the EU play a big part in all this. It's not just here in England. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've heard, for example, about, what was it, Boys Town in the United States. It seems to be, and all the number of kids that go missing, John. What is it? In the UK alone, I think it's supposed to be, 100,000 a year?
Yeah. I mean, we need to talk about
just in the
because,
UK.
They go missing, but they do return. Okay, there are some that never return, but this is how the missing person reporting system works. And the majority of them that go missing from children's homes, and then they are getting involved in child prostitution. And they will usually go on a Thursday from the kids' home, but they'll return at the beginning of the week, and that will go down as a child. And you'll get regular missing persons. So these kids will do it week in, week out. Yet nothing's done to help them, to stop them, to intervene, to debrief them. Nothing.
Our police commission is a Labour politician, says our DLive guest, who hasn't registered there yet or hasn't had their registration come through. Please, if you can, folks, watch this on DLive. guv.li/chaos, because we've got to get off the fascist networks. It's as simple as that. And they are fascist networks. If you want to query that with me, then we'll discuss it another time. We've got James Gore. God bless you, mate. What would you like to ask?
What would I like to ask? I want to say something. Keep your eyes peeled tomorrow.
Now, hold on a second. You're going to go off topic. You can't. You always go off topic. You are James off topic Gore. For crying out loud. If you're going to go off topic, make it quick.
All right. Keep your eyes peeled for tomorrow. The Queen's coming to thing, and I've got me paid work now. Let's get back on subject.
You won't get close to her, mate. You won't get close to her. And even if you did, she's got bugger all power. She's completely useless. We might as well sack her. Lopi says, Lopi's here. Lopi, what would you like to say? What would you like to say, my dear? Lopa's working at her audio. And while she does, okay, so another one who I wonder if she wasn't a whistleblower and a very amazing person, actually, John. I just wonder about Jill Dando.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Rich Planet has done quite a good documentary on the Dando.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean,
Rich Planet.
One of the best bits of investigative journalism I have ever seen, and I can verify from the fellow, is a man called Peter Hyatt, Hyatt.
Yeah.
And the Rich Planet did a documentary called Embedded Confessions.
Embedded
it's all
Confessions.
About the Embedded Confessions. Check it out on YouTube.
Thank you.
And it's the statement analyst Peter Hyatt, who's independent, but I have been in contact with Peter Hyatt, and he does a lot with the FBI and training them, and he analyzes evidence, and he's done it on the McCanns. And
what is the deal with the McCanns?
Oh my word!
I mean, why has is it just a distraction after all? I mean, I do wonder what happened. That particular part of Portugal, as I understand it, is a kind of a paedophile paradise. I also understand there's some very dodgy characters that have hung around that particular resort. But this is kind of speculation largely as well, it has to be said. Go on.
The thing is with that, watch that documentary, and it categorically says that they're both lying. Now, they went out of their way to discredit the dog handler because the animals don't lie. So they turned around and just said it's a load of nonsense. This dog is, inadequate for its cause, and managed to get the evidence of the cadaver dog dismissed. Now, what they did then, they then went out to discredit this dog and the dog handler, but it was the same dog that was used in Haute de la Garenne. So that assisted in the collapse of the investigation in Jersey as well. So their behaviour had a knock-on effect of any justice coming to the poor victims of Haute de la Garenne. I think they're despicable people, and I don't really want to go on about them. It wind me up.
Well, okay, fair play. With regards Jill Dando, she was a presenter with Nick Ross, co-presenting both of them, Crime Watch, which people in the UK will have heard of. And they worked very, very closely with Esther Ranson's charity, Childline. Now, I have read allegations that Childline is just a front to screen calls from abused kids calling up. And if they find out that they're being abused by an important member of society, it all gets silenced. What truth is there in that, would you say, sir?
Yeah, there is. Now, if you look at it, Childline, they've got to ring up 0800 55 111 or whatever it is. I mean, what's wrong with 999? When I was on child abuse investigations, we had what's called the referrals desk, and they would get the referrals coming in, and they came in from various agencies, and it's usually from the schools and the social services, and other police departments would refer a kid at risk. I can remember in all my years working there, one coming through from Childline. So I mean, I would say on a professional level, there definitely are a major filter, because there must have been a hell of a lot of children calling that line.
Lopi, my dear, can you hear us now? And is there something you'd like to ask? Lopi Lou. No? Let me just make sure that I haven't got you muted. No, I don't. Okay, all right.
Can I
What
ask
about? Go on, Glenn.
John, a
Please,
question?
please do.
Yeah, it's actually about the Queen as well. I've read a lot of documents and a lot of articles in regards to Lizzie and Philip having a warrant out for their arrest a few years ago.
Right.
In regards to
Canada?
native Canadian, in regards to Canada,
Yeah.
How true is that, and how did she get away with it not going to court? I know that the palace and that has all got different jurisdiction and that, but this is international courts.
Well, I mean, the Queen will never stand trial in this country, because it's Her Majesty's legal system, isn't it? But I mean, I have heard quite a lot come through about Canada and Australia. But I mean, I was never really privileged to that level of information. So but
That again, though,
I mean,
as we understand it, I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, and my God, there's a lot of smoke there from what I've read, but nonetheless, that is relatively speculative. But the links with Jimmy Savile are not.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that tell us? That
And then you've
Louis
got Prince Andrew
Mountbatten,
with Jeffrey Epstein.
what the links, so far as Jimmy Savile are concerned, the links with Louis Mountbatten, who was godfather to Prince Charles and best, buddies with Philip, or his mentor, they're from the links of Jimmy Savile to Prince Philip and with Prince Charles, even to the point that Jimmy Savile, this serial paedophile stroke serial necrophiliac stroke, went round the wards of NHS hospitals raping incapacitated patients. This guy was a marriage counsellor to Charles and Diana, for God's sake. I mean,
What the actual F?
I mean, we really, really are right at the top of society now, aren't we? We really are. Just a sec, James. John, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say.
It's funny
what to say.
Because I remember I'd always heard quite a lot about him from some of the officers from the paedophile unit that I was doing work with many years ago. And I remember saying it in the CID office that I was working in. And I said, this man is a paedophile. And my detective sergeant, she laughed at me in front of everyone. She said, "Oh, you're a nutcase." And then years later, I got an email saying, "I'm really sorry about what I said." But see,
is there any conceivable way that MI5 would not have known exactly what he was? He spent 11 Christmases with the Thatchers.
Well, if going back to what I was saying about the vetting process,
Go on.
if there was rumours that I was involved in sort of all bizarre sexual stuff, then they'd find out and I wouldn't get the job. They don't need to prove it. But so many people knew what it was doing, and look how close he got to the royal family. You'd be insulting people to say that they didn't know.
I would have thought so.
I mean,
it is
my son, who was injured, ended up in the spinal unit that Jimmy Savile opened in Stoke Mandeville. And when you go in there, there is not one reference to Jimmy Savile. And I spoke to one of the senior nurses, said we are not allowed to talk about him. So, but what's happened with him?
Apparently, the video feed just cut out then as well. As soon as I was talking about the links of Jimmy Savile with the royal family, and the fact that it is preposterous that MI5 didn't know what was going on with that guy. He spent 11 Christmases with the Prime Minister, with Maggie Thatcher and Dennis. It's impossible. I just do not believe that MI5 didn't know what Jimmy Savile was.
They're involved.
Absolutely.
Are we not, John? Are we not? Do we not deserve? Do the British public not deserve an explanation here?
In all fairness,
hold on, whoa, John.
Well, I just think that if you look at all the victims that man has caused, you know, of course, it's just unbelievable. And look at the damage he's done. And it's not just at the time he's doing the damage. Look at the trauma he causes. You know, that even when they do these documentaries, there's people that are still brought to tears when they're recounting what this man did. You know, and it's disgusting. And there is a vicarious liability here. And especially with the BBC, they have a huge vicarious liability. And and all they do is they turn around, they come out with the same old nonsense. We've learned lessons and we're moving forward. But that isn't good enough.
Yeah, well, Savil's dead. You know, he's not going to face any form of punishment for this. But the people he was involved with...
your audio, David, is dreadful. You produce a show, for crying out loud, Hive Mind, and your audio is bad. How is that possible? Look, anyway, we've got Predator Jeff as well. What would you like to ask, Jeff?
Hi, Ollie. You were saying about oh bloody, I got an echo coming back at me for some reason.
Oh, blimey. Your audio is terrible too. Please speak close to your microphone, sir.
Okay. You were saying about, what's his name, Jimmy Savile being with the Thatchers. How would they not know? But remember, Dennis was a complete mishead. He was in a permanent state of inebriation.
Yeah, he liked to have a whiskey. They both did, didn't they? Yeah. We've also got Java here. Java 2017. Java, your audio. Oh, blimey! Please do me a favor. Java 2017. Sort your audio out, and we'll talk when you have. But in the meantime, I'm going to mute your mic, and hopefully we've got Dave Wolf back as well, and Lopi, and Lopi. Lopi, you haven't asked a question yet, my dear. What would you like to ask? Nope, Lopi's audio is still not working. Let me just take a few comments. Diane Camplin Parker. Out of sync, guys. Something going on. Well, no, actually, it is on Fascistbot on Facebook and on YouTube as well, probably. If you want the full experience of my bad hair day, then you need to go to guv.li/chaos. And please, that's DLive. guv.li/chaos. That is the place to watch this show, because it's a network that actually cares about free speech and not trying to curtail it by jailing people when they share my shows, for example. Thomas White, MI5 have different departments and believe it is not most departments of it don't know what is going on or what they are working on. It's always been that way. Yeah, I'm sure they compartmentalize on a need-to-know basis. Jeannie Tressa Anderson says Savile was a nonce. BBC is full of them. How much, John? How culpable is the BBC and the media at large in this systematic cover-up over so many decades?
I've sat down with a lot of the major tabloids with journalists from there, and there's been some good journalists. There was one from the Mail on Sunday, and he was telling me about one of the politicians. I won't name him, but they were saying that we've been trying to get him for 10 years, and each time it gets blocked. So they have actively been trying to get this information out and can't. And it will be on the same basis as the police. You know, they'll go for people that don't deserve it, and those that do, they don't get brought to justice. But there are police that are actively and avidly pursuing them, but it gets blocked. So, you know, if we lived in an ideal world, yes, it'd all get sorted out, but we don't. And that's sad. And what they do is, if we look at, in 2003, they brought in what's called the Bad Character Act, a bit of legislation which allowed courts to use people's previous convictions openly in a trial, because beforehand they couldn't, and there was a bit of an outrage, and people saw it as a step forward for justice. But what it did, it actually perverted justice, because a lot of victims of childhood abuse will go on to suffer. And unfortunately, there's a high percentage of heroin addicts that have come from abused backgrounds.
Yeah.
And when people are on heroin, they have to fund that habit, and they do it through thieving and whatever. And when they get caught, as inevitably they do get caught every now and then, they'll get a conviction for shoplifting, which is classed as a dishonest crime. So they're a person of dishonesty. And the inference there is they're a liar. So if they then want at some point in their life to then come forward and say, look, the reason I'm on the heroin is because this has happened in my background and this person abused me, they don't stand a chance of getting dealt with properly in court because they'll be classed as a liar. And this is what is happening all the time. They are denigrating the victims. And there's a couple of victims that have come forward, made the national press, and have gone on about places like Dolphin Square, prominent politicians, and they're the ones that are getting attacked. And it's a bit the same as how the police. I made allegations against high up people in the police for covering up the worst crime you can, and that is sexual abuse and the pimping of children. And it's me they put their resources in to attack, not those that have done it and covered it up, but me. And this is the perversion of this state we're in at the moment. And really, they need to be accountable for what they've done. Because if the police don't deal with it properly, then the public will never get justice.
I have to say, personally, as a journalist, it infuriates me that the mainstream media, and ex-BBC, by the way, I am, for my sins, it infuriates me that the journalists, who presumably they trained as journalists, they went into journalism hopefully for the right reasons, at least some of them. When they get into journalism, they just, they're just pushing out press releases from the government or from, yeah. It's just, you want your job, you want a nice job or whatever, a nice pad, all that, then shut up. And but they have an acute responsibility. It's the reason why this show, it has one or two pet hates, if you like, you might have noticed. And one of them is the mainstream media, the fake stream media. And the reason for that is because I honestly believe that their job is more important than even that of politicians. Personally, I have no interest in being a politician. I think that journalism is more important, really, because the journalists are supposed to hold the politicians to account.
Absolutely.
We look at what happens with the BBC, and they covered up. They actively, as we were saying on the show last night, they actively try to cover up the Jimmy Savile situation, even after he was dead. And it was ITV that made that documentary, and not the BBC did make a documentary, and they shelved it, and they had to admit when ITV put theirs out, and then basically the fingers were being pointed at the BBC. The BBC News admitted we actually shelved a documentary about Jimmy Savile because we thought it was too sensitive.
If you go back a couple of years,
BBC employee,
a lot of information was coming out. And there were a lot of victims coming forward and saying that I've been abused at Dolphin Square by this politician, by that. And there was people that was corroborating their story. Panorama went out of their way to do a documentary to denigrate these sources of information. And they absolutely tried to destroy one of the major whistleblowers in exposing all this. And it's a man called Chris Fay, who works with us. And the BBC were then also going to go and try and silence Bill Maloney with the same tactic. It's appalling. That was painful.
Oh, blimey. Java 2017, I'm going to kick you off the server because your audio is just impossible. It sounds, I don't know, pretty dreadful. You actually sound like Theresa May, one of Theresa May's dreams or something. So I'm kicking you off the server, and if you want to come back, Duck, you can, and we'll try you again. Maybe you are a troll. I don't know. I've got no idea. I quite like trolls because I quite like to give them a hard time. If you are a troll and you want to call in, particularly if you're involved in all of this and you want to dispute it, then by all means, call in and we'll have a laugh. Because the thing is that you can't really dispute this, can you? I mean, it is out there. It's just, as you say now, people, John, quite understandably, really. It's like I talk to some folks that I really love in this world. I mean, my mum's one of them. I maybe shouldn't mention her, but I mean, she's 86, bless her. And I mention this kind of stuff, and she's having kittens inside. It is so difficult to stomach these kind of allegations against people that we were brought up to respect.
How must the victims of these crimes feel when the people that have perpetrated them are getting MBEs and OBEs and knighted and exonerated. I mean, and how many suicides are attributed to child abuse? How much alcoholism, how much heroin addiction, and dysfunctionality is. I mean, it just destroys everything it touches, and and also there was one survey saying it goes on for 3 generations. So the anger it instills, the hatred it instills, you pass it on and on and on before it filters out. I mean, it really is a single most destructive element in our society, and yet it is the most underfunded part of policing. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable, indeed. Absolutely. We've got Trilogy Community here. Trilogy Community. What would you like to ask Jon Wedger, please? Well, that is a troll. That is a troll.
That's definitely a troll.
That is definitely a troll. And that's wonderful, isn't it? Because you're over the target when you're taking flack. So quite frankly, I'm pleased to hear that. It's good. We're making an impact.
It's a compliment.
I couldn't hear it.
Go on, play it again. I'll troll him. I'm going to see.
Yes, he typed in Hall of Crack Mirrors. He said he's not a troll. He's Java.
Oh, well, Java, you're okay. Okay. He said he's not a troll. Well, in that case, Trilogy, I apologize if you're not a troll. I'm a bit disappointed as well.
Who's
Java? If we're not. But if you are Java 2016 or whatever it was, whose your audio is terrible, so I don't know what it is. Look, please sort out your audio. But I'm not going to bring you back on again. In fact, I banned you because I thought you were a troll, and I do apologize. But if you want to come back as Java, but sort your audio out first. And if you disagree with all this, that's fine. Call in and we'll discuss it respectfully. Yeah, we can do that. I'm just going to see if Lopi got her audio sorted. And would like to ask a question, Lopi. And the answer is no. Jon Wedger, I just want to say, mate, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, it's a pleasure.
God bless you, mate. God bless you.
Thank you, John. Pleasure to speak with you as well. And, if there is a chance to meet you and hopefully in events coming up.
Are you going to 23rd?
I'm trying to do an outro. Tell you what.
Go on, do another 10 minutes, Ollie.
Hey, James, what was that?
Do another 10 minutes of the show, man. It's getting good now.
Oh, okay, all right. You know what? Yeah, fine. You're right. You're right. You're right. John, are you okay for another 10 minutes, sir?
Yeah, I am. Can I get something out there?
I'm in a jam.
I'm organising a fundraising event. I'm going to be in the summer cycling from London to Cornwall, and then I'm going to be swimming around the outside of the Scilly Isles.
Hey, John, I'm getting a few legal documents to do with the bills of exchange.
Hold on. Let him finish. And you're going off topic again, James. Off topic, Gore. I mean, I love this guy, James Gore. Yeah, but sorry, John, you were saying.
If I'm going to be, there is a GoFundMe site. It's a GoFundMe, and then the name Jon Wedger, JONWEDGER. So if any of the listeners wish to sponsor, that'd be great. And the money will be going to rehabilitation of victims of abuse and to a kids centre in Rotherham, which helps the victims of the abuse up there. So it will be well spent, the money. So
that's gofundme.com/Jon Wedger. Jon without the H. JONWEDGER.
So
well, once I sort myself out, I'll give you an hand, Johnny, because I'm pretty clued up on how the money mechanics work.
All right, lovely.
Now hold on, we now are getting calls in, which is great. You're all late, but that's fine. That's okay. K.E. Frost, what would you like to say? First time caller, sir, or madam? Yeah, problems with audio. You know, I have to say, Discord, it can take a bit of getting used to. Yeah, but we use it on this show. If you've not watched the show before, and I imagine a lot of people are watching the show for the first time, we use Discord because it's a great way to have a round table discussion like this. And sometimes it can get a bit disorganized, and sometimes James Gore goes off topic, and sometimes we get a troll or what have you. And sometimes people swear at or get passionate or whatever. But it is a great way to have a roundtable discussion, and you can't do it and be able to moderate it using anything else. And you do have to have a bit of moderation, because otherwise, for example, that guy with his audio, it would be impossible to deal with. But anyway, K Frost, you're very welcome to chip in if you'd like to when you sort out your audio. In the meantime, we've also got Carl Stephen here. Carl, how are you? What would you like to ask, sir? Is he paying attention? Is he paying attention? And if you do call in, please pay attention. Go on, Carl. Go on. Oh, for crying out loud.
Come on, Kyle. Get in there.
Lopez asked me to ask John.
Okay, because Lopez audio is a problem. What would Lopez like to ask, Jeff?
Well, she said, ask John how long to convict a perp. I said, you mean you convict a pedo? She said, somebody said perpetrator.
Perpetrator, yeah.
I think it could be either. I don't know.
How long does it take to what? To convict?
Convict a pedo.
Right. Yeah. Well, the legal process is a very slow one. It depends on the offence, and it depends if someone goes guilty or not. But if we take worst case scenario where it is a serious sexual offence, the person is not going guilty, you're not going to see much court activity within a year.
Yeah, thank you, John. It's funny, isn't it, how fast they convicted Tommy Robinson now for speaking the truth.
That's right. Well, Tommy Robinson. Yeah. Good example of free speech being culled. No, John?
Well, you've not just got Tommy Robinson. If you go back to the student riots of 2011 or 2010, that's the first time they implemented 24-hour courts. So Horse Free Road Court was held open for 24 hours to deal with that. So whenever there is anything of public disobedience which is going against the system, that they will bring these big guns out.
Let me read a few more comments that actually refer really to what we're talking about here. Chris Ford, hey Chris, says they make the excuse that if this is brought into the public arena, it's a threat to national security. Well, it's a threat to our kids at the moment. Yeah, she's right though, isn't she? I mean, that is kind of like almost the undertone of what they say. They don't quite say it in that language, but that's almost the intimation.
What I'll say about that is that, yes, that's the case in this country, and it always seems to be that way. But when you look at the Philippines, a third world, progressive country, you've got their president, Rodrigo Duterte.
Yes.
And this man has openly stated, if you hurt my children, I kill you.
That's right. He has. They don't like him, do they? They're all ganging up against him.
And they are. But what he's saying, because he's a victim of abuse by ministers in the Catholic Church himself.
Is he?
As a young kid. And so he fully understands the dangers of poverty, of sex tourism, of when kids are put into the care system and how they do get abused by institutions. And he's openly standing out in a man of that position. And do you know what? In many ways, I admire the guy.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to sound like I'm admiring, some despot, but I don't think he is. I think he generally has child protection at the heart of what he's doing.
Yeah, I do too. It's very interesting, actually. That's very, very interesting what you just say. I mean, he is given such a hard time, a little bit like Trump. Any threat to this, I don't know, God. I mean, some people talk about Illuminati. We know about the New World Order. I mean, they all spout. Gordon Brown talked about the New World Order like he had Tourette's.
Well, I'll give
any threat to it.
Of a two-tiered system. One case I dealt with, a man, they used to gauge the child porn images 1 to 5, 1 being the minor, 5 being very, very serious. So 1 you'd get a caution, 5 you'd go to prison. And this was just an image, and there's a difference between having an image and then downloading it and what the class is making an image, which ups the sentence. So one guy I know, he had a level 5 image, and he went to prison for 18 months. There was a detective that I knew and I had worked with, who was in dealing with sex offences with children as well. He had served in the military, in the security services on the intelligence level. He was also in his spare time very much into swinging, and he would be part of an organising team which would organise swinging parties in a wealthy North London suburb, and which he would tell me that there was all sorts of people. There was Crown Court judges there, there was a senior copper there, there's good big businessmen there. He was very high up in the local, he was in the chair, as they say, in the local Masonic lodge. This guy was caught with a computer he'd stolen from the police and had been using for over a year, with thousands of level 5 videos involving very young infant children and bestial sex. He was given a community service order and was commended by the judge for his work for the safety of the UK in the military and in the police.
Incredible.
So this shows this disparity, you know.
Blimey.
Pure judiciary.
Lady Dive.
They're all bought off by the banks anyway, so
But
you know
it's
the judges are owned by the banks, and Rothschilds control. Not very nice people. And then you go further down the line, and you see Pope Francis and his church boys doing
Well,
absolutely
Pope Francis.
insanity.
James, yeah, Pope Francis, he said when he became Pope, we know Benedict quit. Oh, no, he didn't. There are two popes. There was
Ratzinger, wasn't there?
Ratzinger, the German guy who was alleged to have covered up a pedo ring or something, or covered up for pedo bishops or something in his...
His brother had been in trouble for it, hadn't he? His brother was a cardinal.
Pope Francis?
No, Ratzinger, the last bloke,
yeah.
Benedict. But this Pope comes in, and it's mysterious how that happened in itself. And one of the first things he does, with a smile, because he's got a wonderful smile. He's got one of those Obama-esque Tony Blair pre-Iraq, kind of one of those smiles.
He's got one of them evil smiles. Your kids.
Hold on,
He
James.
looks at them kids.
James, hold on. Whilst he's pouncing around in his red shoes and his dress, and he said one of the first things he said when he became Pope was, there will be no police investigations into allegations of child abuse in the Catholic faith. I'm not gonna have that.
My jeez, man! That pedo.
James, God bless you, mate. John, carry on, John.
Yeah. Well, if you look at they released 2 white doves. They had 2 children in the Vatican when this new Pope got in, and they released 2 doves, and it was for the children, the victims of abuse. And one of them was attacked by a crow, and the other one, I think it was some sort of falcon, went and ate the other one. As soon as they were released, they were attacked and killed. But I contacted in the heat of what was happening to me, Vincent Nichols, Cardinal Vincent Nichols, who's head of the Catholic Church. And I was brought up a Catholic, my father, back in his family, they were Italian, so they're quite strict with it. And I said, help me. I want you to help me. This is what they're doing to me. It's wrong. And he said, how can I help you? I can't intervene. And I got back to him and I said, but you intervened with the McCann case. Why are you not intervening here? I'm helping the children. Help me. And the Catholic Church refused to help me. And it's just appalling. What are they there for?
John,
and all of this has to be questioned.
Yes, absolutely. Just changing tack slightly. A big question that just occurred to me. Dunblane. Now, there are those of us that think that Hungerford and then Dunblane were 2 opportunities to take away, respectively, our shotguns, and then our handguns, and leave us defenseless, which is pretty much what they're talking about in the States, isn't it? And the Founding Fathers, they weren't stupid. They had a tyrannous government from London, and they knew what they were doing when they wanted people to keep their guns. it seems to me. But anyway, setting that aside, whether or not that was used as an excuse to take our guns, this character Hamilton,
Thomas Hamilton, yeah.
he was a. What can you tell us about that?
He himself was a paedophile, and I think he man a very dubious character, and he had connections with Gordon Brown's brother, I think, and
That's
think
correct.
there may be a connection then with Gordon Brown's brother and Jerry McCann as well. I think they're from the same area. But
and also with the judge, with a judge as well, who was a Scottish judge who was supposed to have been a prolific paedophile, allegedly, and I can't remember his name anyway. But that was all very, very curious, was it not? That this guy was given a license for a firearm, despite the fact that he was considered to be a very odd bloke, it just all seemed a bit strange. And then all those kids get shot up in that school in Dunblane.
The inside information I had, a good friend of mine, his wife was shot at that school. And
Really?
apparently Hamilton had turned up, and his intention was to shoot all the children in the face in the assembly. And there was a kid that was late, a little fat kid was late apparently. And Hamilton asked the kid, about what time it was, so he could get the assembly right, and the kid lied because he didn't want to get in trouble. So by the time Hamilton got into the school, the kids had already dispersed from assembly to their respective classrooms, and he then went from classroom to classroom. And what my friend said was strange, because his wife got shot in the back by Hamilton.
She was a teacher, was she?
Yeah, the male teachers ran, but the female teachers, they sort of corralled the children and put their back to him and cuddled the children, and a lot of the female teachers got shot in the back.
I do wonder. There's a lot of smoke around that, and I wonder what link there is with that to the D-notice, basically covering up, telling the media you cannot report on Operation Or. Which was a paedophile investigation being carried out in the UK.
Yeah.
What, 3,000 paedophiles were identified or something? Alleged paedophiles, and including
the Canadian Post Office.
I'm sorry. Go on.
It was a US and Canadian Post Office. They had it was porn websites that had been paid for by credit card, and they did the audit trail via the credit card and traced them to addresses in the UK.
Tony Miranda Blair, Tony Charles Linton Blair, if you want to look into Charles Linton and the allegations there that Tony Blair himself was doing a bit of cottaging. That's the allegation. No idea, Tone, but if you want to come on the show and have a chat about it, that'd be great. No, it wouldn't actually. I don't want to have him on the show at all.
It was twice he was caught, and the rumours were that sentence at Bow Street Magistrates Court, and the first police building he shut down when he got to power was Bow Street Magistrates Court. That's what I was told.
And this is the Prime Minister that put a D-notice on Operation Or, and some of the allegations that have flown around, I wonder what validity there is in this, is that the reason he put a D-notice on the list was because it included cabinet members.
Yeah, I mean, I could never disbelieve that. I mean, from what I've learned in the last few years, so many fingers point to that place. They really do. I mean, I was asked to address the House of Lords into why grooming gangs have been allowed to proliferate.
Yeah.
And I turned around and I said, I can't help you because, firstly, there was never an Islamic element to what I looked into. And I said, but the other thing is, and I said, when I was bullied into silence, the commissioner at the time was Sir Bernard Hogan Howe, and he did nothing to prevent any of this. In fact, he was part of the attack on me, and they put him in charge of, in the House of Lords, of looking at grooming gangs. So I said, well, while he's still in post, I can't help you, and I won't help you.
Well, it's like that Keith Vaz character. Keith Vaz, Labour MP. who was charged for, you know, being caught doing Charlie with a rent boy or something.
Yeah,
And he's he's in charge of a committee in what is it? Something like Public Decency Committee or something.
Yeah,
Just-
and
Just big as belief. It's all in the public domain, that information.
I've heard so much. I mean, I can't go into what I know because the sources come from, you know, very, very close to
Yes.
Jazz, but a vile man, from what I've heard, a vile man, you know.
Well, that's allegedly. That is
They're allowed to
allegedly,
get away with
but
it, yeah.
but
Tell me
nonetheless,
how
he
they've been allowed to
certainly.
get away with it. But yeah, again, you know, the contempt laws come in. So if you can't prove it to a court standard, then they can jump on you for contempt. And the next thing you know, you're in court with notices served on you. And then if you violate them, then you're looking at prison. And this is what they do. So you really have to box clever. You know, there's a lot of things I could be saying, but I won't. Firstly, because my pride doesn't need it. And secondly, I need to still be functioning. I don't need to be, you know, at the arse end of some criminal justice case that's going to cause me a lot of detriment. So, you know, it's a shame. It really is. But the legal system, a barrister said to me one day, he said, son, what you got to remember is in this game, you know, it's proof, not truth. And it's so sad that that's the case, you know.
Jon Wedger, God bless you, mate. I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
No, brilliant. Thank you. It's been enjoyable. And please check out the
Hold on. Whoa. Go on. What was that, John? Check out what?
Please check out the Pie Mash films, Walking Whistle Blind Detective, and
Bill Maloney.
the GoFundMe page if I can get some support. For
GoFundMe.com/Jon Wedger. JONWEDGER. And yeah. Oh, John, God bless you, man. I tell you what, I wish we had
all
more
victims and survivors. Thank you ever so much.
That has been the Daily Brexit. I'd like to thank everybody who got involved and who tried to get involved, but for whatever reason, audio was creating problems. And I know that the audio stopped on Facebook for a while when I was talking about Jimmy Savile. Surprise, surprise. I say, you know what? Here's to us and bugger plutocracy, yeah? They're a weird old lot, I tell you what. We need a peaceful revolution. Stop paying for propaganda. Do not pay your bloody BBC license fee. Now that is the way to kick this establishment in the nuts, I'll tell you. Never mind all these political parties, yeah? That's the way. That's the message they need. Gotta say, no way. This has been Daily Chaos. I'm Ollie Connolly. I'll see you tomorrow at 7. Go on, James.
Blooming Pope! I want to see him hanging, and I'm better to pull these bollocks.
Oi! I think you're basically right. Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for all your comments. Thank you. God bless you for all your comments. Share this show, yeah. Share this show. It's the most important show I've ever done, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get near the Queen's though.
Mate, you're not going to get close. You're not going to get close, James. God bless you. And to be honest with you, I mean, she's an elderly lady. I mean, you know.
Right, I'm going to use the middle.
If you do, tell her she's sacked. She's sacked. She failed on her coronation oath, and she bloody well sacked.
Absolutely, Harry. You feel my energy. Really empathetic you are, I can tell.
I'll catch you tomorrow, guys. God bless you. God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wedger, sir.
No wash.